Pascagoula-Gautier School Board of Trustees to order. We'll start with having a presentation of the colors by Gautier NJROTC, followed by Mr. Irving will give us a prayer, and Mr. Taylor will lead us in the pledge. Mr. Dobbs, we have an agenda before us. Well, first off, let me make note, Ms. England, that all 5 board members are present. And Mr. Dobbs, once again, we have an agenda before us on any changes.
I have one addition. I don't think I have it. We have a property acquisition opportunity, and I'd like to add that to the packet. Can we place it under Board of Trustees D? Kelly?
Do you want that as a real estate matter under executive session at this point?
Actually, we can do that way too.
I think probably so. Does any board member have anything that they would like to add? Hearing none, need a motion to approve the agenda? Second. Motion by Ms. Wilson to approve and seconded by Mr. McNeil. Any discussion on the item? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. 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 Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Have the item B.
Full improvement presentation, Mr. Stewart Smirthwaite.
Good evening, distinguished board members.
Good evening, sir.
Appreciate y'all having us tonight. Mr. Swift's getting us set up, but I can go ahead and preface my presentation by saying it's still going to be a little bit light. This month will be a little dry, but next month, in May, it's going to get real juicy. We're going to have a lot of detail for you in May. But so, Mr. Swift, you get us to page 2. That's the order. Well, I'll need the next page. There one next to that. So the numbers I do have to share with you this month are our March 2019 column there.
You blow that up.
So we're still, our student enrollment still over 670 students. We got a full house over there, we're loving that. Our ADA is back over where we needed it to be. We finally got all that flu cured. We've got our percent of students with chronic abscesses down back where we needed, a little bit lower than it was the previous month. Teacher attendance rate, we moved the flu from the students to the teachers in March. So we're getting that improved though. We're going to be better in April. And our discipline referrals definitely plummeted. We had a much better month. So looking good there. Like I said, next month I'm going to have a lot more detail for you because we're going to have some results back from some of our spring screeners. And I think you'll probably hear the same from some of the other principals as well. As far as getting our resources allocated, we've got an assistant that started last week, getting the final information on our second assistant, and so we're going to have that person in place hopefully next week. And we're getting some tough, hard work in here with our students who are with disabilities. We're really trying to just dive right in with them these last couple weeks before we crank up testing. So I think we're in good shape, and I'm looking forward to seeing y'all again in May, second Monday in May. Going to be a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parkway. Okay, item 1B, Ms. Rowan.
All right. Give it a minute for him to pull up. All right, here we go at Singing River Academy. We have 480 students. Our ADA is back up as well, 95.99%. 58% of our students with 2 or more absences. Again, we are doing our very best and working with our school attendance officer as well with trying to get some help. And I've reached out to Ms. Damon and Mr. Rudolphich, and they've helped as well with contacting and even going to home visits trying to get our kids to school. Our teacher attendance rate is 94%, which is really good. We are currently sitting at 6 staff members that have not missed 1 day of work this year. Wow. We offer huge incentive baskets for those children at the end, I mean, for those teachers at the end. So we're sitting at 6 right now, so that's pretty cool. And 110 discipline referrals for the month of March. We have hired our one SPED assistant, and she has started working. She's been there about 2 weeks now, working with our children in the area of math specifically. And that's about it for right now. Any questions? All right.
Thank you, Ms. Rowan. Item 1D, Dr. Nix.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a good night. Let's see, for Palmer, give them just a second and get where we need to be. Looking at the month of March, enrollment's down a few students, as you can see. However, ADA is up, so we're pleased about that, almost 94%. Teacher attendance rate is up at 96%, but last month it wasn't far off from that. And then discipline referrals, as you can see, quite a reduction in discipline referrals. I attribute that to going into classrooms as well as going into investigating incidents before they turn into major incidents. So we're really excited about that. In terms of our allocation, we are looking at bringing in some consulting agents to come in and observe some of the things we do and offer some suggestions. So we're in the process of following those procedures to get to that point. But all things are in place, and like Mr. Smurthwaite said, look to have some numbers in regards to our diagnostics that we just completed this month. So, any questions?
No, thank you, Dr. Nix. Okay, item 1E, Dr. Payton.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Next page, Kurt. Okay, again, at Pascagoula High, not a big change in enrollment. ADA, 91.7%. Chronic absenteeism, 29%, still a lot higher than I would like to have it. Teacher attendance rate, 90%. And the number of discipline referrals to 170, back to below what the average was last year. In our allocations, Ms. Broadus is in the process right now of purchasing, our bookkeeper, Ms. Broadus, is in the process right now of purchasing Chromebooks to use our benchmarking program that we're getting and our intervention program that we're getting. We've decided that it's in the best interest of our students and in the interest of being good stewards of taxpayers' money not to start the benchmarking or the intervention program until August, with it being so late in the year, and we just got the funds released. So right now we're getting the technology in place to implement those programs, and then we'll actually implement the programs in August.
Thank you. Great. Mr. Dolphin, do we have any visitors?
We do not.
Okay. Item 2A.
We're grouping some routine items into a single consent agenda. Each board member may request that any or all items on the consent agenda be removed and considered as separate items. If no such request is made, all items on the consent agenda may be approved by a single action motion vote of the school board. Consent agenda for April 8, 2019, request for approval of board meeting minutes, March 18, 2019, request for approval of personnel reservations recommendations, request for approval of document claims for March 2019, request for approval of student assignments and transfers, request for enrollment of in-district students whose parents are employees, request for approval of out-of-district students whose parents are employees, request for approval of removal of equipment from inventory and disposal, request for approval of school psychologists for 1819, 1920 school years, and special request for summer hours, request for approval of PCG contract, request for approval of donations and grants, request for approval of youth facility, request to raise adult meal prices for 2019-2020 school year, recommendation to award RFP 51219 professional development in the multi-sensory method for teaching English language arts. Recommendation to award RFP 51519 professional development for K-12 content teachers in sheltered English instruction for teaching English learners. Rejection of all proposals in regards to RFP 514-19 train-the-trainer professional development for teachers and other district personnel in sheltered English instruction, and no additional advertising at this time. Request for approval to advertise for proposals to provide professional development for teachers and administrators on effective school instruction strategies in the area of mathematics, focusing on the special education subgroup. Request for approval to advertise for proposals to provide professional development for teachers and administrators of effective instructional strategies in the area of English language arts, focusing on the special education subgroup. Request for approval to advertise for proposals to provide benchmark assessments designed to provide feedback and measure academic progress of students. Request for approval of 2019-20 teacher contract salary schedule. Request for approval of construction change order number 1, PHS Performing Arts Center project. Request for approval of construction change directives. Request for approval of application certificates of payments. Request for approval of licensed employees for 2019-20 school year. Request for approval to advertise for bids. Request for approval to advertise for bids. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS Environthon. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS Speech and Debate. Request for approval of overnight field trip, PHS Beta Club. Request for approval of overnight field trip, GHS Beta Club. Request for approval of overnight field trip, GHS, PHS Boys and Girls Powerlifting Teams. Request for approval of overnight out-of-state field trip, CMS Cheerleaders. Request for approval of overnight trip, GMS Cheerleading Squad. Request for approval of bids, District Depository for FY 2022. It is recommended that all items on the consent agenda for April 8th, 2019 be approved.
Okay, is there any item on the consent agenda any board member would like to have moved to act on separately? Okay, hearing none, so we need a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion to approve by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Irving. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. All opposed, no. Motion carried 5-0. Now it's 4A.
PGSD recognizes its responsibility to ensure that parents receive information lined out in the Parents' Right to Know of VSEA, Section 1112, parentheses E. Testing is one such area that parents may request information. The policy IIAAA provides information to parents on the requirements of state testing. This policy is modeled after the MSBA policy. Since this is a new policy recommendation rather than a revision, it requires 2 readings. Therefore, it is submitted as a study item at this time. A recommendation for approval will be made at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Okay, we'll act on it tonight. We'll act on it next meeting. Any discussions on that study item? Okay. Item 5A, have the commission reports. Start off with the vandalism report. Any questions or comments about the vandalism report? Hearing none, we'll go to the construction update. Have we caught up any at all on the auditorium, fine arts, or fine?
We probably made up a week.
Okay.
We had 2 weeks of good weather and them changing one of their subs. We probably made up a week.
Okay.
We'll know tomorrow. We did not meet today. We're going to meet tomorrow instead. So we'll get a better schedule update from them.
Okay.
We know exactly where they are.
Would y'all mind emailing that to the board members? Sure. Okay. Any other comments about the construction update? Next item, discipline report. It's always good to see improvement on some of these. Questions or comments about the discipline report? Okay, hearing none. We'll go to item 6A. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, 5A, monthly financial reports. I've had an opportunity to look at these items. Any questions or comments about financial reports? Next item, proposal for college and career academy branding.
I brought I've got the PowerPoint here, and we've had several discussions about it, and the bridge concept was kind of a little bland for some folks. And Mr. Johnson talked about a new concept that's associated with that concept, which is high-rise, I think. Is that correct, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, it was not really the concept, the work that had gone into it, the photographs we had, I think the message I had no issue with. I think we were there, just the name in general of the bridge. It said in my comments, I know everyone's going to have a different opinion. When I just hear the bridge, I think of a gap, so it comes to me in a negative context. One of the first things that you see in the presentation was a high-rise. So not only does high-rise still incorporate all of the concept that we had before, I feel like it's a lot more positive out of the gate, along with giving, the graphic designers a lot more headroom when it comes to working in a logo and how they want that design to look. Ultimately, the program's going to be measured by its success, not its name, but especially in regards to recruiting potential residents in the communities, employees in the future. When we talk about things like that, I do feel like having some sort of a upbeat and catchy name would help. Again, just my opinion.
Sounds good. And board member?
I second what Mr. Johnson was talking about. I believe it. I would like to see something that's striving for excellence in some form or fashion that is more, in a way that's more encouraging than just a bridge name. High-rise, that's the first I've heard of that one, but that sounds good. I mean, those types of things where we are striving to be the best school district in the state, and we are doing things from a public relations standpoint that people get that impression when they hear about the Pascagoula-Gautier School District, that not only are we striving to be the best school district in the state, we are the best school district in the state. And we have resources that other kids, quite frankly, do not have at our disposal in this school district. And I'd like that message to be distilled in 2 or 3 words.
Any other board member? I kind of thought, once they said this, I hadn't thought much about it, but bridging high expectations, that, I don't know how that sounds, but that's just something we're talking about high expectations, and we're keeping the bridge concept there. That's okay, but then again, it's still something just to study, and might come up with a lot better ideas than that.
Well, we're kind of at that time now. We've been through it with our kids, and the kids, one of the concepts they came up with, and we have 60 kids that are part of the Superintendent's Advisory Committee, and they came up with bridge as one. It wasn't one of the stronger ones, but it's one that the Hummingbird picked up on. And I was bought whenever they gave us those 4 proposals that I sent you. I was sold when I saw the image of that bridge. That is a colossal architectural, just a real icon in this community. It's a testimony to great architecture. So I was immediately sold on just the magnitude of that bridge. But after hearing the high-rise concept as it associates with the bridge, the High-Rise Academy of the Pascagoula-Gautier School District, or the Pascagoula-Gautier School District High-Rise Academies, it feels really good, guys. And I'm really wanting us, and as Mr. Johnson said, you give me whatever name you want me to take, and we will build a program around it. And we're not the professionals who do all this. Everything you've got from us has been totally amateur work. The writing, the filming, all of it. But we would like for the board to come to a consensus tonight. We're going to bring it back to our students tomorrow, and hopefully we can make the sale to them. And we're meeting with all 60 of our kids again, and we're putting it right back on them. And we're going to show them the video. We're going to ask them, what did we miss? And the same thing. What did we miss that's uniquely valuable to these Gautier and Pascagoula communities? So with all due respect, I would ask if the board would give us approval to move forward if high-rise is the direction y'all would like to go. And then that, of course, that will be vetted by our students tomorrow, and we'll see how they respond to it. Because we're really trying to build for the fall of next year. But that, it's very, they haven't even started working yet. And they're going to buy, we're buying one concept from them, and we've got to settle at some point on what we want. So can I get a consensus, or go back to the drawing board, or?
I've got a question. Are we under a time crunch for a reason? And that, the only reason I ask is, quite frankly, I just saw these 4 today. I know that we got the stuff sent on Thursday or Friday, but I just reviewed this portion of our board materials today, quite frankly. Number 2, we have a lot of really good public relations resources at our disposal in this community. And I didn't know if we've consulted with the hospital and Chevron and Ingalls and people who have trained public relations people at their disposal who would be willing to assist and give ideas. And so if we're under a time crunch, that's one thing. But if it could be delayed to the work session or to the other board meeting, because this is a pretty important branding opportunity for the school district, I would prefer to push it to the work session or the board meeting and allow us to have some additional input.
Right, and the only thing I would respond with is, this what we're doing tonight is specifically to the college and career academies. The extra stuff is not necessarily going to be part of that campaign. Right now, it's just naming what our academies will be. And so Mr. West has dealt with them on a pretty close basis, on room for delaying.
Well, because the process of naming, and building the logo, and then producing the materials that are going to go with it, with the I can't remember the technical term, but all the pamphlets and flyers and those kind of things, plus the social media push out, plus the video production. The idea to get all this in place so that we can start getting this out into the public over the summer, because the plan is to be full implementation starting in August. So any delay, backs up our opportunity to push this out into the public. And we have not been as proactive in communicating the wide scope to all our stakeholders, because we didn't want to do it with a kind of a homegrown approach. We wanted it to be professional and polished, so that when we push it out, parents have a good understanding, because it's done professionally, of what their kids are about to embark upon in terms of the transition the district is making at the high schools. So that, to me, is the time crunch piece, and that, if we back up this group from all these steps that they have to take to get it ready to go, public with it, then we're delayed in communicating with stakeholders. And it's a dynamic paradigm shift from a traditional high school approach to a career academy model, and we don't want to keep them in the dark. We want to be able to show them, a high quality product, and so that's kind of, technically we probably should have been beyond this point by now, but vetting everything and getting all the input is, kind of push it to the edge, that if we don't get moving on this pretty quickly, we will not be ready for a summer kind of informational media blitz to inform our parents and everybody. Our kids are getting an understanding of it at the schools. Our teachers are getting understanding. Within the district, the concept is very well developed in terms of communicating with parents, community, stakeholders. We have not done that because we're kind of waiting on this process.
And I have spoke with Alan Sudduth about expanding the scope of this whole thing to include the 2 cities and all the great resources within the 2 cities. So again, we can't move forward without board approval. And if the board would like to delay, we can delay, but we may not be able to deliver the finished product before the start of the school year for the launch. And we're going to, again, tomorrow we're going to go meet with our kids and see what they say, because kids are usually brutally honest with you about what you put together for them. They're not going to be nice if they don't like it.
Understood. All right, the work session is the 26th of April.
We're,
I mean, I would be pushing it. I mean, it's just over, it's just over 2 weeks. And so, I don't know, it just seems like, I'm not a public relations expert. And so, I would be interested to know what some of our public relations experts in the community thought of it, quite frankly, of the name.
And I know, I'm not trying to steer anybody one way or the other, but I have had discussions with a couple, and one being Chevron, around what we're doing and the end goal myself. And what they're saying, the feedback that I'm getting from them at least is kind of really to what Boyd said, this needs to go outside to a professional entity because, we want it to be done that way because we get one shot at it. Want to make sure that it's in those kinds of hands, and I think that's what they're trying to do here tonight. So I can't speak to Ingalls, can't speak to the hospital, those guys, but I do feel relatively comfortable saying that, Chevron, if there's input we would like from them, they're glad to give it, but, their opinion is there's firms specifically in place that do this kind of thing, and they want to see it in their hands, because it helps them as a company too. Those are the people designed to put these things together to attract families, to attract them. And so they say give it to those guys and let them do it right.
Yeah, and that's good with me. Did you get the feeling, Mr. Johnson, that Chevron was on board with high-rise or a specific name that they felt like they could sell for our community?
Had brief discussion around the high-rise, and really as far as name goes, that was really the feel was it needs to be positive, it needs to be catchy, and that is one thing that, not just Chevron, but most people I've had these discussions with have said, leave as much headroom as you possibly can for your designers to work with things. Don't box them into a corner and feel like high-rise accomplishes that too. I do like the concept of the bridge, like I said, as it was in the PowerPoint. That was just my suggestion of a more positive, name that would get your attention in a little bit better way.
Yeah, and I guess I have a bunch of questions, so I apologize.
Oh, no, it's totally.
All right, so if we approve high-rise, for example, tonight, and the kids tomorrow say, horrible idea, and, I mean, where are we? What are we doing here?
Well, we'll be back to looking at the bridge, but it's a solution-driven approach that they have to come up with a solution of something that would be a better way to present it, and that would be for them to accomplish. But the issue is we're locked into about a $25,000 agreement with this company. If they come with us with a concept and they say, we say, we don't like the concept, then they're going to begin a new charge for a new concept. So they're kind of built, and they brought the concepts to us, the 4 concepts they brought had the bridge in it. I think that they would have no problem with the high-rise as and we're the customer, so they're going to be adaptable to us.
Right.
But there's a power to some of the symbolism there associated with the bridge, the high-rise, however we phrase it. And again, we're going to sell it regardless of what it is. But right now, the Hummingbird has done nothing except submitted those 4 proposals to us. And they're ready to begin designing and creating. At some point, I've got to turn them loose on that. And they know better their production schedule than I do as far as getting things ready. We're talking commercial, we're talking pamphlets, all those things. But it is specifically associated to college and career academies. That's what it's about. It's not about the PGSD. It's one aspect of the PGSD.
What are the wishes of the board?
I think I like high-rise, and maybe even rise high. You could reverse it, but either way, I think I like both of those as potentials. It does seem like a big decision.
Yes.
Because even though, I understand Hummingbird is going to take it and run with it, we're the ones coming up with the name that's going to be forever associated with it.
I don't disagree. I feel like it feel like it's a rush to hurry up and come up with a name. You want to make it right because you're not going to change it. And just like you actually said, if the kids come back and say they don't like it, will you come back with feedback to the board with a new title or?
Well, that'll be up to Hummingbird. They'll have to go back to the drawing board if we reject the 4 things that they've given us. So that'll go back to them to begin coming up with a concept.
Unless we make the recommendation that we prefer high-rise. Is that right?
So that's where we are.
So you said the 4, what's the 4?
Can we send them out in the board packets? There was a quad was one. G2 was one, which is very clever because you have Gould and Gautier. But I doubt you're going to have the Pascagoula part of the community agree to having 2 Gs as your symbols for the academy. And then we had A+, which we have an A+ within the district, which is our teacher enhancement pay that we do, which in this, A+ is not really strong enough. Quad's not understandable enough. The G2, I've already explained to you what the issue is there, but when you start putting the imagery of the bridge around, and I've already had a local photographer bring me 172 pictures of pictures he's taken around that bridge and river to augment what we're doing, and gave them to us to look at. Well, we can come back with a full concept on the 26th if y'all like.
Yeah, so with the high rise, that'd be a good concept you got to present to them.
Yeah, they're not familiar with high rise.
And what if we even ask for their recommendation of a catchy title around the bridge, since the bridge was one that they already pitched to us? Maybe that wouldn't be like a total redo. Just some suggestion on some wording or language to associate with the bridge.
Well, we'll meet with the kids tomorrow, and then we'll reconnect with Hummingbird tomorrow afternoon and just give them some new direction. And I'll ask them to have something conceptually ready by the work session for y'all. But at that point, we really need to make a decision. We've got to move on.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll have feedback from the kids.
Yeah. And this all originated with them. Yes, Mr. West.
In the discussion, when they presented us, and we met with them to talk that we liked the bridge concept as the formal title. And we asked them, can you do a mock-up of some logos that would, associate the bridge, in a grammatic or a graphical piece? And they said, they don't want to spend the time producing if that's not the direction that we go, because time is of the essence for them as well, and they just simply weren't going to invest the time into a concept that we may later say, well, okay, we don't like that. They want to get the title formally approved and then go to work, because they may have to come back with multiple drafts of the graphic, the logo piece, until we decide what we think is the best option for that. So we can't ask, if we go to Hummingbird and say we like high rise, they're going to ask us, is that going to be the title? And if we say no, then that's, again, I think is going to delay their design of any graphics and logos, because that's just how they operate.
How much did it cost us to get to this point?
I don't think we received the bill yet.
Yeah, it's, I don't have the numbers in front. It's broken down by each piece. I'd be lying if I told you what I thought it was for the naming and the logo piece. I don't think it's the larger portion by any means, because the production of videos and deliverables is certainly going to take up more of their time. But I think there is a financial side to this portion.
Would it be too much to ask the board that do like Tracy said, is say we like the bridge concept, but we would like something to do with high expectations or rising high, and let them, they're the professional company, let them come up with it, and I'm okay with that. They're certainly the professionals, not me. What do y'all think?
I'm okay with that, I guess, if we approach it that way, and they get back to us with some ideas, some draft around that, I would hope that we could consider maybe looking at that and then possibly convening for a special if we have to, and understanding where everybody's coming from. And I think with me personally, it's not the money piece. This is an overall $25,000 contract. We don't want to just throw that out the window, but we spend that kind of money, many times over on many things here. I think it's that at that point, we're going to be coming to them on May 1, let's just say. And now at this point, you've got 12 weeks or a little less to put all this together, get all these videos shot, get all these materials printed, because I want it rolled out as we come into next school year. Too. So if they get us something, in 5 days, could we come together after we've looked at that for a day or so? And I think it's a time essence thing more than financial, because we want it ready for next school year.
Yeah, and it might even be helpful if, quite frankly, they just had a 10-minute call with each one of us individually, for us just to kind of give them our thoughts in general. And then, I don't think we could do a conference call with all of us on there, but if they could just call us and we could talk to Hummingbird themselves. And I'd be happy to talk to them for 10 minutes just to give them my general thoughts. Because these 4 right here, I'm not a fan of. And I'm not a fan of the Bridge Academies. I am a fan, much more of a fan of this, of loftier expectations, of high-rise, rise high, those types of things. And I'd just like to convey that to them.
Can I add one more thing? Part of the video production, obviously we want our students in that, and at our CCTI, we were just now at the season, Mr. Bash, you're probably real familiar with this, of doing all the live projects. We're coming to the culmination we're towards the culmination of those things as we move into May. And so the window to get some great video and photographs of our kids in action with some really amazing, hands-on projects, that's somewhat of a smaller window. Now, I don't know that the naming is required in shooting that, but that would be a discussion to have with Hummingbird. That do they shoot video and photographs with the concept in mind? Does that affect how they shoot? I'm not a marketing firm, so that'd be at least worth asking, because we just want to make sure that we hit the timeline so that we can do a good rollout prior to the opening of school in August.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good point, because I think they could start doing things now to move it along, and I don't see why you can't just go ahead and start shooting video now. It doesn't seem like that would be necessary for us to have a name in place this week. You can go ahead and start shooting videos.
Do y'all think that we need to come together for a special meeting after so many days? Mr. Dawkins,
That's going to be on Hummingbird's timeline at this point. I mean, we have to get the information to them. You're dealing with creative people, and so they arrive where they arrive when they arrive there. I don't have a timeline for that from them, so that would be premature at this point. I think the work session would be a fine time to discuss it again.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to wait until the 26th, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Move right along to item 6A. It's board policy review, policies JGFD to JHDA. Does any board member have any suggestions about any of the policies we currently have in place that might need changing or tweaking?
I have 2 policies that I'd like to bring up at the work session. I don't want to get more input from the superintendent and athletic director and other people, but 2 policies in particular that I'd like to get into a little bit more detail in the work session. One is GFBB, that is the cell phone policy. To me personally, it seems too strict, too stringent. I was researching cell phone policies. It seems like we're one of the strictest in the state, where we don't even allow them on campus, period, end of story, or you're disciplined. It seems like most schools are drifting away from that policy, but if y'all have information, to help educate me on that, I'd like to know that. So I'd like to address that at the work session. And the second one is the eligibility of student athletes. I think that's policy JH. And that's another policy that it seems like we're the strictest in the state. We're much stricter than the MHSAA policy. And to me personally, it seems too strict that if you, I believe the policy is if you make an F, or the MHSAA policy is if you make an F in a class, then you can't play the next semester. Obviously, that makes good sense. I think our policy is that if you make an F on a test, you're in a warning period for 10 days. And then whether you've had a test or not, or whether the grade's been put in or not, or regardless what happens, then you can't play that sport until you bring your grade up. And I just know personally, when I was an immature 15, 16-year-old, I would make a 40. I would have to bring it up by the end of the semester. It just seems too strict to me. But that's another thing that I'd like to be discussed at more length, and give you all the opportunity to give me more information on those two policies at the work session.
All right.
Any other board member have any comments about certain policies? Okay. Hearing none, we have item 6B. Taylor McNeil would like to request a discussion of future athletic director makeup in the district.
Yeah, so this is just a discussion item, and it's just for the athletic director makeup of the district. It's not looking to actually, take any action, more just to get feedback really at the work session from our athletic director and our superintendent and from the board members tonight. Competitively, if you look at our competition, virtually every school we play has their own athletic director. And we are in a tough situation. We put our athletic director, quite frankly, in my opinion, in a tough situation where he has to be the athletic director over two high schools that are fierce rivals. Stone County has their own athletic director. If you look at Jackson County School District, St. Martin, Van Cleve, and East Central all have their own athletic directors. Biloxi, Gulfport, Ocean Springs all have their own athletic directors. We're one of the only schools in the state that have 5 6A schools. Next year we'll both be 5A in the same division as rivals, and we have to have one athletic director. To me, it puts our athletic director in a very tough, if not impossible situation to have to manage expectations at both communities, to have to manage time management at both communities, to have to try to allocate resources at both communities in a fair fashion, where you have to try to play the middle, as opposed to having an advocate for each school individually. So that's something I would like to discuss in more detail at the work session. See, it's one of those things where, is it practical for us at this late in the school year to have an athletic director for each school financially? Whether it be an interim athletic director for the 2019-20 school year, is that even feasible at this point in time? I don't know. These are things I'd like to talk about at the work session. Is it more feasible for the 2021 school year to have 2 athletic directors? Potentially. But these are things that I'd like to talk about some more at the work session.
Any other board member have any comments about this? I prefer to talk about it at the work session. Okay, item 6C, Mr. Irving would like to discuss about the registration requirements pertaining to living with forms.
Yes, and this is the same thing, right? I mean, it's for discussion. I've received feedback from multiple sources that, and I read the policy for the living with form. We're requiring them to physically come pick up a form that they have to get notarized. They have to take away from me and get notarized. I read through the policy. I don't read where you say if I got to get a form notarized for registration, I have to physically be the one to come pick it up. I think it's inconvenience to some parents. You got a lot of single parents out here working, so you got to leave work to come pick up a form to then go get it notarized, to then come back and register. If you had someone to stop by the office and say, "Can I get a form?" I don't think that will cause anyone to try to trick the system. I mean, if you're trying to trick the system, you're going to trick the system whether you physically come pick up the form or someone else come pick it up, if you gotta get it notarized, and you still have to come back and do the registration. So I just think we need to discuss that policy because it's not clear, and from me as a board member, feedback that I give back to the community, I want to be clear on what the feedback is and not kind of go about saying this is the rules that they come up with and we got to stick by that when the policy doesn't state that in there. So,
Mr. Rodolphe, is there any reason why we make the parent or guardian physically pick up the form?
That's right.
Yes, that's a reason that we do that. The first reason is we've had so much abuse with that situation that it does state the living with form must be notarized and the legal resident must provide photo ID and accompany the parent during registration. And that fact does indicate that the legal resident has to be there. But there's a precedent here as well, Mr. Irwin. About the time Mr. Bax came on the board, we just had widespread abuse with that. As a matter of fact, that was one of the first points that he brought out when he came to the board, that our living procedure was somewhat flawed, and the superintendent directed student services to investigate every last one of them, and I'm referring to the living with situation. And we removed 214 children out of the district that belonged in other communities that were using the living with referral, because all they had to do was just come up and just ask for it, and we would give it to them, and we didn't establish the fact that the parent lived in the district. And so when we started establishing that that was the first thing that they do, our numbers started going down for that. The following year was 56, and last year we had 11 there. So, yes, sir, registration is inconveniencing, period, to go through that. But we have to have some parameters in progress, in process, to ensure that the widespread abuse is not like it was when we started this process. 214 children is a little small school that we've moved out of there, and so we're just trying to protect the district resources.
and I don't disagree, but when we start talking about policy, I mean, the count could be attributable to people coming up here, but the policy don't state that I physically, it says during registration, the legal person has to be present.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have to get a form notarized, they obviously have to come back up here to register. They can't register without that form. So if you could just send anyone up here, but if that true guardian has to be here with photo ID and they have it notarized, that's the registration piece that I look at when I read the policy. It's not stated clearly in the policy like that. And I can't go back to parents and tell them, I see the policy states this, but because years ago, we had so many people out the district, in the district, that I'm forcing you to do that. So we need to, as a board, come make it clear, more clear for parents to understand, or we need to go ahead and kind of state what the outline should be.
And we can add some clarity to it, but there again, you know, the first step in the process is we have to know that you live in the district, and that's part of it. You know, if you're living with someone else, if you have resources in your own name, there's not a problem. But if I'm living with you or my family's living with you, then you certainly have to verify that I'm living with you in order to move forward under this process. But we'll do whatever the superintendent directs us to do.
Understood. I'm just saying, if you got to take this form, when I come in and I have to pick up the form, I still have to take it away from here to get it notarized. That doesn't guarantee that I'm living with someone or I'm in the district. That's just saying I've got to get the form notarized. If they was filling the forms out, if the policy stated, I come in the building and I got a notary right here, and before you do your registration, you get it notarized on the facility, that's different. But being that the parents have to show up, pick up the form, and say, I'm the one that they're staying with, and then go back and get it notarized, doesn't kind of change the way of knowing if they get the district or not.
Well, what's the problem with the form even being online? You get the form, and when you get it notarized and all, then the resident and the living with person comes up there, and either the form's good or it's not. If they can't show their the residents and all, so we can't accept this because you don't live in the district. Is that okay?
Well, as I said again, the first step in our process is to establish that you're living in the district, and that's one way we do that if you don't have an address of your own. And And that's again, we've just seen how that's curbed some of the abuse. Again, it's increasingly gone down since we've had that.
I don't quite understand the process, I guess. So we require a notarized affidavit of some kind for living with
Yes, sir.
parents, or living with relatives, or living with anybody.
Yes, sir.
It's a notarized affidavit.
That's correct.
Okay, and so if a person, so let's say somebody comes up and say, my nephew's living with me, and I want him to go to school with my son. I go to the school district and I get a form, and I can't sign it right then at the school district? Or
No, sir, and I want to be clear with the scenario you just used. It's not that. It's not just as you described it. I mean, you can't. You got to have court ramifications for that. You just can't have somebody living with you and you're not the official guardian. But back to the specifics of your question. Yes, sir, you're going to have to get that form and you're going to have to sign it in front of the notary to say, to establish the fact that you're the one that signed it, the information.
and we have notaries on site, but we don't provide that service to
We do
them.
not provide that service to parent.
Okay.
Unless it's an indigent situation. We certainly provide it in that case.
And what you're notarizing is the affidavit itself.
Yes, sir.
And so I guess the only purpose of the notarizing the affidavit is so somebody's not signing an affidavit who's not really signing the affidavit. Because the only purpose of a notary is just verifying a signature.
That's right. That's correct.
I'm still a little confused, but we can talk about it more in the work session.
Any other board member have any policies they'd like to discuss? Okay, well, I'm way past that, excuse me. Okay. The next thing we need to do is to have approval for close the meeting to determine the executive session. Need a motion to close the executive session. Motion made by Ms. Wilson to close the regular meeting and determine, well, not close the regular meeting, but determine that we close the executive session, close the regular meeting and go to the executive session, and seconded by Mr. Johnson. All in favor say yea. All right. Whatever. I'm looking. I'm sitting here looking at the thing. Yeah. Okay. Say aye. Aye. All in favor?